If you saw my video the other day, then you'll know I started off playing Starfield pretty disappointed. And if you didn't watch it, well, I started off pretty disappointed. It was like Elon or Daddy Bezos asked if I wanted to go to the moon, but then said I had to take a nap until we got there. This was due to some incorrect expectations of the game, and because of that initial disappointment, a bunch of smaller things started to compound into a bigger frustration. But I want you guys to enjoy the game because overall, it's a pretty good game. Although it's not Game of the Year, and if you think it's a Game of the Year, then you're absolutely whack. While Starfield is a single-player game that has a tutorial, and most things are straightforward, there are a couple things that caused me headaches or confusion. Some of those may be obvious to some people, but I know others might have the same small brain as me, and you deserve a smooth starting experience. So let's lay those things out. First up, do not use a hard drive. I know the specs literally say it, but I know you guys are going to ignore it, like I did. It's not playable on a hard drive, so just don't do it. Once you got through the 5-day ordeal of installing this frickin' chungus of a game, pick a trait. It helps guide your experience early on and gives you some idea of purpose and character. A lot of RPGs I tend to find it hard to actually roleplay because I just end up playing the safe route that I always would, the nice guy. But picking up a trait at the beginning, while it adds some hardship, helps make sure you immediately have a sense of purpose or identity for your decisions going forward. As an example, I started with a dream home. Now, this started with an initial cost of $125,000 I had to pay off, but I got a sick house out of it. I now started my game focusing on taking high-paying jobs immediately, rather than progressing a lot of story. The value of me replaying this just went up significantly. I've never really seen games do this before to any real meaningful extent. I've also got extra dialogue options for being wanted, as I could sympathize with other criminals and get them to back down. Next up, we have ship control, and that's unlocked with skills. I advise you to go over all these skills in case you come across a situation where you're confused as to why you can't do something. It may just be hidden underneath a skill, like the ability to actually have 6 degrees of freedom for my ship instead of just flying straight at my enemies like a moth to flames. And on that note, the oxygen skill is annoying and hard to figure out. To level up skills, you have to complete certain challenges, and for the oxygen's challenge, you need to deplete all of your oxygen. The problem is that it's not just depleting your oxygen that you have to complete, but you also have to fill up your CO2 meter for it to count as 1. But now that you know how to fly your ship the way it should have been by default, you can't fly anywhere. Well, you can, but as Alana Pierce showed here, it's pointless. 7 hours of flying to Pluto led her to a low-res planet that she clipped right through. And as I said in my other video, Starfield is not a space game, so don't try to spend too much time out here. But while you are out there zooming around in that sexy little ship of yours, use your scanner to travel. Instead of opening your star map as it suggests, you can just stay out of menus. And this game has a lot of menus, so you're going to want to minimize the amount of time you spend in them. Now on to control schemes. Controller is better for flight and casual strolling, but aiming will always be easier on KBM. I know that this is common gaming knowledge, but I advise getting used to both if you're playing on PC. I switch back and forth all the time, but 70% of my gameplay is actually on controller. Now unless you have some god tier PC, keep FSR2 on. I hate upscaling, but at 100% sharpening, it's bearable. You'll get more frames than trying to play native, duh. And there is a mod for DLSS, but it does have some bugs. I'm sure it'll get better and better over time, so keep an eye out on that. The amount of loot in this game you get is overwhelming. It's great because you can sell 372,626 guns after every fight and make money, but you'll also be scrambling trying to read all the stats and figure out which gun is best. My advice is just try every gun you get by favoriting the guns and accessing them from your quick menu. It's the D-pad on controller or Q on KBM, and this will let you know what kind of guns you want to use and where to spec your first skill points. Then you can worry about modifying stuff later. Between research and all the crafting, the game's a little overwhelming for us with P-brains. Don't be afraid to just ignore some of the elements early on until you get your bearings. Now while you can't turn off markers entirely, if you want a more immersive experience, I recommend turning off floating markers. There's a lot of hand-holding and this can help a bit. Sure, it still shows in the minimap, but hey, at least it's something for us that actually want to be immersed in our RPGs. God forbid you give us Immersion, Bethesda. On that note, accept random side quests. As I admitted in the intro, it took me some time to like this game, but side missions single-handedly got me vibing. Feeling as if I was stumbling across events happening in this world made the game feel like my own. I also advise not marking them as your main missions if you want immersion. Feeling like you're helping out some random radio call really dives you into the world and makes it feel alive. But when markers start appearing on the screen, it starts to feel like a checklist again. If you're like me, it'll help you focus on the environment and story more when you're not handheld to the next location or item. Side note, This is why I love games like Outward or Star Citizen. I hope these tips helped set you on the right foot because while I don't think this game is revolutionary or Game of the Year worthy, I do think it's fun and worthwhile, and having frustrations right off the bat can hinder your ability to enjoy the experience. If you got any great tips for beginners, throw them in the comments down below, and join the Discord to chat space stuff. Link is in the description below the subscribe button. Goodbye!